All right, you want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days? Yeah, I bet. Who doesn't? You want to do it, and you want it to be extremely easy. Of course. I can do this. I can make this happen. I can even show you. But the reality is, you know you, and I have a feeling I know you too. But anyway, welcome to Walk, Talk, Vent. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome back. Listen, today we have a wonderful show that I promise you're going to really love. So this guy on the screen is Dan from I Allegedly. He is one of my favorite YouTubers that actually inspired me to do Walk, Talk, Vent. So I made a little fun collage since I do see him as my YouTube uncle, so to speak. And the collage is only 2 minutes. So I want you to see it. Hopefully it'll give you a chuckle. He's one of the most positive people ever. When you're watching him walk and talk about his topics, he's super duper positive, and he really just makes you feel better about life. But the montage I put together might come across the exact opposite way, so I hope you have a chuckle with it.
Hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. This is I Allegedly. And got a good one for you today because there's so much going on right now, but people are absolutely maxed out. And welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly, and this is a clown show, guys. Hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly. One thing that we get is emails from people that work for companies or completely aware of situations that they may or may not want people to know, but they want the audience to know that things are much worse than they think. So, hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly. And I've got a good one for you today because I'm at the fish market. And, hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. This is I Allegedly. And I've got a good one for you today. And I'm going to talk about all the different problems. Hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly. And I've got a good one for you today because you have no access to cash. No. Hey, it's Dan. Welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly. And I've got a good one for you today. I'm out for a walk with special guest Rosie, and I made the mistake of answering the phone before I left the house. So I want to talk to you guys about how everything right now is smoke and mirrors. First things first, Mary wrote me and was talking about how difficult it is being unemployed right now. Welcome back. You're watching I Allegedly. And I've got a good one for you today because every now and then a bad idea travels real fast. Man, oh man, we're at the point of no return. But a lot to cover today. Please don't forget to hit the like button.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was Dan from I Allegedly. He honestly gave me the idea to do a walking channel, and that leads me to my actual guest for today's show. Her name is Heather. Her channel is called Half Size Me, and she went through an amazing change from being an overweight woman that has 3 kids to a superstar athlete. Well, I don't know if she's a superstar athlete, but she's in super duper great shape. And a lot of her success in her weight loss is due to her love for walking. So in a weird way, when I watched a couple clips of hers today, I thought I was watching my own show, and I wanted to share it with you guys.
You know, I have tried this so many times, I quote unquote have failed. How do I give myself permission to do this again? How do I do this one more time with this fear of failure looming in the back? So, Jenny, the very first thing I want to say is there is no fail or pass to this. Crazy, right? I used to think that. I used to think it's either a fail or a pass. It's not. We in the West tend to see things very linear. I start at point A, I'm 200 pounds. I pass if I hit 150 pounds. Straight line, right? Whereas in the East, they tend to view progress and process in a circular pattern. So instead of you going from a point to another point and drawing a straight line, it would be like going up the inside of a lighthouse and that spiraling up motion where you're constantly circling around the same problem, but every time you put some time and energy into it and you make improvements, you would be going up and up and up, but you're still always spiraling around the same problem.
So that's kind of what I mean when she's walking and talking. The stuff that she says is things that you wouldn't really expect and normally hear from somebody doing a fitness type of channel. But the things that come out of Heather's mouth are just profound and amazing. And I think they're one of those things that kind of makes your brain explode because they're so simple, yet you never thought of them before. So again, I totally recommend you check out her channel. Let's see if she throws another pearl or two of wisdom here.
So there's never really a beginning and there's never really an end. It's just this upward motion. And here's how we can think of this differently. When you were a kid and you were learning to write and you were learning to ride a bike, you didn't sit there and say, oh my gosh, I fell off my bike. I have failed. I will never get back on this contraption again. Screw bike riding. Obviously, I'm not good at this. No, kids don't think that way because
Okay, not the best example. I fell off the bike once and it took me like 3 or 4 weeks to get back on. And you did too, be honest. All right, maybe she's got a good point there. If you fall off the bike as a kid, you want to get back on because you want to be able to visit your friend on the other side of the neighborhood, or at least you used to. Nowadays, Heather, these kids want to ride everywhere they go.
kids don't have this limited belief about themselves. They see, oh wait, I just fell off the bike. Great, I get back on, I try again until I get it. And guess what? Most people, when they're kids, they learn to ride a bike. They learn to write. They can put a pencil on paper. But it's the same thing. When kids start writing, it's hard as heck. They're not equipped to do those fine motor skills, but they keep failing. They keep quote unquote failing and learning and progressing, but they don't put the weight behind it that we do as adults. As adults, we start to see things as like a zero-sum game, right? I'm either good at this, I'm not good at this. The things I'm not good at, screw it, I'm not doing it. The things I am good at, I'm going to devote all my time and attention to, and I'm not going to force myself to go back to these things that make me uncomfortable because I don't want to put the effort in, or I'm afraid, God forbid, I fail again. What I'm suggesting we do is, instead of looking at the past as fails, what if we look at those as learning opportunities? What if you were to say, maybe I did this 5 times in my past, and all 5 times I never got to the goal? Well, in there is a great nugget of something you need to learn. Whether it's about your mindset on how you're approaching weight loss, right? Maybe it's the all or nothing thinking. Maybe you believe you have to be super restrictive, which is why it blows up in your face. Maybe you want to do it with one of your friends and you guys do some kind of crazy detox diet and you guys clear out the pantry and you do all this stuff and it's almost ceremonial and then it never works out. Like maybe it's the way you've gone about it or you're thinking about it that has caused you not to be successful. Because what's insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If every time you approach weight loss, it's with the all or nothing, super restrictive thought process, and you wonder why you only last 2 weeks or you never get to your goal, I would make the argument it's probably all of those things, right? Restriction on and off. So maybe you take a totally different approach and you say, I learned the last 5 times, none of that really worked for me. So what if I actually just focused on breakfast?
Sounds like she's talking about baby steps, right? Because if you jump into anything full bore, a lot of times it can appear like it's impossible. So again, when she talks, you can't help but think, yes, I agree with that. Totally makes sense. Yes, keep going, Heather.
What if I looked at revamping breakfast, picking an option that's lower in calories or higher in fruits and vegetables or whatever, and I'm just going to focus on that, take a totally different track because you are forever learning and growing. Let's be honest, Jenny, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever job you have, whatever place you are in life, the person that you were 5, 10 years ago is not the same person you are today. It would be like taking a kid who's 5 and struggling with, say, writing their name and then saying, at 10 years of age, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this. Wouldn't we all make the argument that the 10-year-old has different fine motor skills and comprehension ability than the 5-year-old? Well, do you believe that's only true for children? Because it's not. Like what they have shown with the human brain is we are capable of learning new stuff continuously. Think about that. Isn't that exciting?
She's totally inspirational. And yes, the old saying, you can't teach old dogs new tricks, doesn't really apply to humans. I firmly agree with her. There's no reason why you can't baby step, get hours of experience under your belt, and learn to conquer a myriad of things that are in front of you as challenges. It's good to challenge yourself. We like challenging ourselves here at Walk Talk Vent, and I have a feeling at Half Size Me, her viewers like to challenge themselves as well.
What that means is the you at 50 is not the you at 60. You're forever growing and changing. Your capacity to learn, try again, learn from the mistakes, make improvements, it's endless. So what we want to remember in all of this, a couple things. One, progress is never linear, no matter what the goal. So you're never going to go from point A to point B in a straight line. You're going to have bumps and there's going to be problems. The next thing, you have to see the difference between your capacity to learn and grow and change versus being some kind of a fixed entity. You're ever growing and changing. So dig deep. Don't stay superficial and on the level. Dig deep and say, what is it that's not working for me? How am I thinking about this process? How can I think about this differently? And how can I do different actions? That's a big one. So just want to encourage you, never give up. Never think you're broken. Never think you're going to stay on the ground 24/7. There is potential for you. And you are an ever-growing, ever-learning person. I love that.
I love it too. I can do this. You can do this. We can do this. Let's do this. Go get your shoes on. Let's go for a walk. Good morning, Venters. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your weekend. It is Friday for me, TGIF, but that means it's Saturday for you, TGIS. Saturday is technically a little bit better than Friday, right? Because technically it's your whole day to yourself, and not only can you sleep in today, but you can stay up late and sleep in tomorrow as well. I've been watching some videos this morning and visited the Good News Network. The Good News Network was saying that scientists are starting to believe that when spiders create giant webs and giant networks of webs, that there's a chance that those webs can actually serve as kind of hearing centers for the spiders. In other words, when you walk by a spider web, when you talk by a spider web, there's a chance that the little fibrous parts of the spider web can actually help the spider itself detect you and detect your sound waves. And that just sounds amazing, doesn't it? Could you imagine if you walked into an older house filled with cobwebs and you find out that right when you're at the front door, the spider upstairs can hear you? Hi, good morning. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? That's kind of cool though. I don't know what makes scientists study certain things. You got to have a good imagination just to figure out what things to study, God, look at this wild hair. On another note, and I literally was like hypnotized by this, there was a couple of different videos that basically were saying this morning that the Vatican is trying to come out with new policies to recognize the fact that it looks like there's going to start to become more, how do I say this? I believe that there's going to be more apparitions that people start seeing. And so they're kind of developing guidelines for how we should interpret these visions that people are seeing. And that's kind of trippy, A lot of times we're no longer looking at these aliens as aliens or extraterrestrials from another planet. They're starting to see them more as interdimensional beings. which is more synonymous with spiritual beings like angels and demons. And I just find that super, super interesting. Could you imagine if they're basically laying the groundwork stating that, hey, going forward, you're going to start to see more of these apparitions, more of these visions. God, that would be crazy. And you know, it's interesting, people that watch Walk Talk Vent, they tell me all the time, Jesse, I'm seeing aliens and interdimensional beings in the background. I never see them though, you know? I joke that there's aliens, you know, boom, there's an alien, right? But I never see them myself. So if you see aliens and interdimensional beings while you watch Walk Talk Vent, you know, consider yourself blessed. You're seeing something that other humans aren't. That's amazing. That is amazing. And some people say, Jesse, I'll see aliens go by and they say, go venters. So apparently these interdimensional beings and aliens are very much aware of you, but you're just not quite seeing them sometimes. So if you ever see an alien in the background, or if you think it's an interdimensional being and you see a crash or anything, make sure you tell me in the notes where you saw the crash, and maybe I'll be able to check to see if we can see any debris or something that I can take over to NASA, or I could take safely to the government without fear of them shutting me up with the men in black. But what do you guys think about that? Could you imagine if we all went out one day and started seeing crosses in the sky, or, you know, figures in the sky? That would be crazy. But remember, there's a military side to this too, where a lot of people feel like the military is going to start doing a grand deception. And they're going to have a situation where aliens start to attack beings, or they start to attack people, or they start to attack aircraft in the sky. And so there's a lot of people that feel like, hey, this sounds like Project Bluebeam, and those aren't aliens at all. They're holographic images. Because, you know, one way you can make a dot in the sky appear like it's going, you know, multiple thousands of miles per hour from one spot to another is with a hologram, right? So I find all this very interesting. My take on it is that they're all in cahoots together. And while other militaries around the world take jets and put them up in the sky, I think we've got some weapons that are, you know, basically what we think are UFOs. I have a feeling they're just weaponry that the US has developed that just to the human eye would look like magic, you know? I think we're able to do some amazing things that you and I aren't going to hear about probably for another 30 or 40 years, if we ever hear about them. But I'll tell you what, I'm a person of faith, so if we ever do have a situation where there's a war of beings up there, you know, so be it. If that's what it's supposed to be. Here's the thing, though. If this is the end of times and we start to see these forces battle one another, you know, then I guess you could say we're living in unusual times, right? Because a lot of people of the Christian faith have always been saying, I want to be here for the end of times, and then we've slowly seen a lot of them pass away, right? They weren't quite here for the end of days. But if what we hear is true, who knows? Maybe we are here in the end of days. I can tell you one thing that's really changed, whether you're religious or not. I'm sure we can all agree that the country here seemed like it was a little bit more spiritual and a country of faith and believers 20 or 30 or 40 years ago than they do now. I still drive by churches and I still see a lot of vehicles in the parking lots. So I know a lot of people are still attending church, but it seems like for the last 25 or 30 years, we've been constantly hearing about how a lot of churches are seeing a significant decrease in attendance. So I think even half the people that are in church each week aren't necessarily believers or what have you, you know? So I find a lot of that fascinating. And, you know, If you think that the aliens and interdimensional beings have absolutely nothing to do with faith, let me know in the comments. If, on the other hand, you do think a lot of these sightings might be angels or demons, let me also know that. An interesting tidbit about this is I've seen some videos through the past couple of years that have said that there's one thing interesting about people that claim they've been abducted by aliens. The interesting thing is that a lot of times, if they're able to say the words Jesus Christ, a lot of times their abduction immediately ends, which is always interesting because we've always been taught as Christians that there's a lot of power in the name Jesus Christ, right? But at the same time, not all of them, not every story that I've heard about UFOs or abduction, not all of them had a slice of religion to them, right? Many of them that I hear don't. So I find that all interesting. What is my take on it? My take on it is that probably there are angels and demons. There probably are spiritual interdimensional beings out there. But I think we also know that when we look up at the sky, there's so many stars, and we're coming to find that so many of those stars, have planets circling them. And then, of course, we're able to find planets that have a lot of water. And a lot of times with water, there can be life within those waters. But the interesting thing is, every time we seem to find water, whether it's on a moon of one of our planets or, in the polar extremities of certain planets, right, ice and stuff, a lot of times we end up finding out that, those waters and those ice patches, don't necessarily have life in them. So even though water is synonymous with life here on Earth, that doesn't necessarily mean it's synonymous with life elsewhere, Another thing is, we're used to carbon-based life forms where we breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. I guess in theory, a life form could live on some sort of other means. I don't know if it's possible. Does every life form ever out there have to inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide? I have no idea, but I would imagine that it's possible that there could be life forms that live in another way than we do. Interesting tidbit, if you guys remember, a couple months back, there was a family that made a phone call and kind of got some publicity in Las Vegas. Remember, we had a situation where a guy said that an alien or some craft had crashed in his backyard. I'm sure you guys remember that, right? Well, at first on the 911 call that we hear, it's him saying, hey, can you please send police right away? There's this 10-foot tall thing in the backyard with giant eyes, and it's kind of freaky and scary, right? And I'm sure right when people hear that, half the people think hoax, and maybe the other half think, ooh, that's interesting, right? But he ended up kind of making an amendment to his story, guys. The amendment that I heard was that the being had actually landed and created a situation where their crucifix that they had up on the wall had come off the wall, was upside down, and just kind of hovering in the middle of their room. If you heard this, tell me in the comments. If you haven't heard this, did you know this? Or, well, if you haven't heard this, you didn't know this, but that's kind of an interesting tidbit, right? So at first we were led to believe that it was 10-foot tall aliens and they were in this backyard area. I've even seen some videos where they're trying to show little shadow, or not little shadows, but giant shadows. And they're trying to make the argument that here's the shadow, this is the being that they saw. Look, it's right there. But whenever you're looking at a shadow, that could be anything. If you look at my shadow here on the street, which you probably can't. Let me see if I can turn the mirror. But I'm sure you guys know this. The way the sun hits you, it can make your shadow look like it's 10 or 15 feet tall, right? You can see my shadow right there. That doesn't look like 5'9.5" Jesse, 5'10" if you ask me. Doesn't look like me. It looks like I don't know, maybe a 15-foot version of me. So whenever we're dealing with shadows, it's already a little suspect when it comes to the height of an object, right? But when we're dealing with beings that can make your cross pop off the wall and hover upside down, right? When you look at aliens, you might think, oh my God, take me, I'm ready to be with you, my alien. But if that alien's really a demon or a fallen angel, you know, you don't necessarily want to go hang out with him in his spaceship, you know? Remember, the reason that some people think these are supernatural beings rather than aliens is because the things they can do comes across as supernatural. For example, there is a video of Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan speaking, where Tucker describes how there's situations where these vehicles go underwater and then they travel at just ungodly speeds underwater. Whenever I hear stories like that, a lot of times it's challenging for me to think that they're angels or demons, because if you're an angel or demon, you don't really need a spacecraft, you know? And if you're an angel or demon, the last thing you're going to worry about is the U.S. Army or the U.S. military base or the U.S. installation. Another thing is that there's people that believe we were able to take Nazi technologies from the 30s and 40s, and that we were able to overcome gravity and create these anti-gravity vehicles. If that's the case, if you are able to develop those type of weapons and those abilities in the 1930s and 40s, do the math. That means that we've been dealing with these technologies for darn near 100 years. Jesse, that sounds goofy and weird. It is goofy and weird, because whenever there's a new technology and time to improve on that technology and you're kept in the dark about it, technology has a way of looking like magic to people. Have you guys heard about that one island where during World War II, they had a plane that landed on the island, they dropped some food to the people of the island, and so what the people of the island did was they took a lot of tree limbs and a lot of flowers and a lot of reeds and rods around this island, and they created a giant model airplane, because their thinkings were the gods ride in airplanes and they drop food to us, which kind of goes back to a biblical theme too, when manna dropped from heaven, right, during the Exodus. So what's really interesting is when you can step away. You don't have to be really religious by any means, but the reality is, if you find yourself in a non-religious context, in other words, you have nothing to do with faith or religion, right? You're just a regular Joe that doesn't believe in that stuff. But when you start talking about interdimensional beings, I need you to at least know this, that if you believe in interdimensional beings, then you're actually capable of believing in things like angels and demons. And when we believe in things like angels and demons, you have to take that one step further. That means that there are good entities or beings out there, but there also means that there's bad ones. And Tucker Carlson was telling Joe Rogan, he goes, you know, we have facts that show that some of our soldiers, some people, have been killed by these things. Well, we know one thing, that a servant of God, an angel, wouldn't be killing people, right? So we have to assume, once again, that these things aren't necessarily good. They're not necessarily these quiet beings that just go about their day ignoring us, right? There could be an element of spiritual warfare about. Now, if you're an atheist, you're rolling your eyes thinking this is all crazy. And I'm a person of faith, but I still roll my eyes thinking it's crazy, because I don't think it's angels and demons. I think it's theater, because I think we already have the ability. I think America, and I've said this before, I think we're actually 300 to 400 years ahead of Russia and China. But instead, we play this role where we lead the Russians and the Chinese and the rest of the world to believe that they're just as powerful as us. we spread that on the news all the time too, if you think about it. How many times have people said, and I've talked about this as well, that even though we spend close to $1 trillion a year on military, the other countries spend 1/10 of that, and somehow Russia has better high-speed, right, missiles, and somehow China has better drones and better cyber warfare. I think our country wants us to believe that we're behind the 8 ball, because I think that gives other countries the power and the desire to maybe create an attack situation. And imagine if every time they try to throw a nuclear missile up, some alien comes down and disables the missile. If you tell your enemies that, yeah, we have this technology, you'll lose that secret within a decade, because they'll find a way to infiltrate your top levels of security and steal that, much like the Russians stole information regarding the atomic bomb. So again, when you look at all this, whoa, did you guys see that? Rewind it real quick. I want everyone to take a look at that. That could have been a bird, could have been a plane, but whatever it was, it went by really, really super fast. That could have been a legit UFO. So that was crazy. Rewind that and tell me what you guys thought of it. I'm just trying to bring the message of what I heard, that the Pope is trying to get us ready to see more apparitions, more things that are going to be amazing. And when you see something amazing in the sky, it's not necessarily good. So don't necessarily be ready to profess your faith to the aliens in the sky, because that's no bueno, right? So again, even if there were 1 million different aliens out there, 1 million different beings out there, it shouldn't affect your faith. But at the same time, if people start seeing a bunch of crazy things, it will affect your faith. It will affect their faith. So again, I'm not going to try to convert you to any type of religion or faith, but I just wanted to let you know these might not be aliens at all. There is a good chance they're interdimensional beings. And if they are interdimensional beings, there's a good chance that they're not all good. So keep that in mind. If some being pops up in your backyard, don't start professing him to be God and Savior of your life, because more than likely he's not. With that being said, grab your crucifix. Have a great day at work. We'll talk soon.